My husband believed I didn't speak his language, not the language of words, but the language of understanding. He often looked at me as if I were standing on the other side of a wall, present, yet unreachable. Whenever he spoke, his voice carried urgency. He wanted quick answers, clear reactions, and visible emotions. I listened quietly, absorbing every word, every pause, every unspoken feeling behind his sentences. But my silence confused him. To him, silence meant distance. It meant indifference. "You never understand what I'm saying," he once said, frustration heavy in his voice. I wanted to tell him that I understood more than he realized, that I heard what he said and what he couldn't say. But I stayed quiet, hoping time would explain what words could not. In his mind, communication was loud. It required immediate responses and strong opinions. In mine, communication was careful. I believed in listening fully before speaking, in choosing peace over argument. This difference slowly built a gap between us, a space filled with assumptions and audio, his story unmet expectations. A husband spoke with intensity. His words came fast, filled with emotion and expectation. He believed that love should be expressed immediately, through answers, reactions, and strong responses. I was different. I listened first. I felt deeply, but I responded slowly. When he talked, I didn't interrupt. I watched his expressions, noticed the rise and fall of his voice, and tried to understand what he truly meant. But to him, my silence felt like a barrier. He mistook my calm for coldness and my patience for lack of interest. "Say something," he would urge. And I wanted to, but not before understanding everything. For him, expression meant speaking. For me, it meant listening. He believed emotions should be visible and loud. I believed they should be steady and thoughtful. This difference turned small conversations into quiet conflicts neither of us knew how to solve. He often thought I was emotionally distant. He didn't realize that while he moved on quickly from words spoken, I carried them with me. I replayed conversations in my mind, searching for meaning, choosing my responses carefully so I wouldn't hurt him or make things worse. Silence, for me, was never empty. It was full of reflection, care, and restraint. But he saw it as avoidance. He believed that if I truly understood him, I would respond the way he did. What separated us wasn't love, it was expression. Two people speaking from the same heart, but in different emotional languages. He spoke to be heard. I listened to understand. And in that space between silence and expression, we both waited for the other to speak our language. He began to think I didn't care, that I wasn't trying, that I simply couldn't speak his language. What he didn't see was how deeply I was present, how every word he spoke stayed with me long after the conversation ended. The misunderstanding wasn't about language at all. It was about timing, temperament, and the way two hearts express care differently. I wasn't silent because I didn't understand him. I was silent because I did. And sometimes, the deepest understanding is mistaken for absence until it's finally seen. My husband and I loved each other deeply, but we spoke different emotional languages. He expressed his feelings through words, direct, intense, and immediate. I expressed mine through presence, quiet, steady, and consistent. Neither of us was wrong, yet we often felt misunderstood. He believed emotions should be spoken out loud. When something hurt him, he said it instantly. When he cared, he expected to hear it clearly and often. For him, silence created uncertainty. It made him feel unseen and unimportant. I was different. I believed emotions needed time. I felt things deeply, but I didn't rush to put them into words. I showed love by staying, by remembering details, by being there even when things were difficult. To me, actions carried more weight than conversations. This difference slowly created distance. He felt ignored. I felt pressured. He thought I didn't understand him. I felt he didn't understand how I loved. Conversations turned into frustration, not because of a lack of care, but because of a lack of translation. I often wished he could see my silence as devotion, not withdrawal, that he could recognize my calm as strength, not emotional absence. I wanted him to know that every unspoken word was carefully held, not carelessly dismissed. Over time, I realized that love is not just about speaking. It's about learning to listen in unfamiliar ways. Two people can feel the same depth of emotion, yet express it differently. Our struggle was never about love. It was about learning each other's emotional language and understanding that difference does not mean distance. A husband often thought I was distant. He saw my calm nature and believed it meant I wasn't fully involved. What he didn't see was the strength behind that calm, the kind that doesn't demand attention or recognition. I was always there, even when my presence was quiet. I listened when he spoke, supported him when he struggled, and stayed steady when emotions ran high. I didn't argue loudly or defend myself with sharp words. Instead, I chose patience, believing that love didn't need to be proven through noise. When problems arose, he reacted quickly, emotionally. I reacted by grounding myself, by becoming the stable place he could return to. But stability can look like distance to someone who expects visible emotion. He mistook my steadiness for lack of passion. There were moments when his frustration spilled over into words that hurt. I absorbed them in silence, not because they didn't matter, but because I didn't want to add more weight to his burden. My strength was in restraint, not reaction. I showed love in small, consistent ways, by remembering what mattered to him, by standing beside him during difficult times, by staying when leaving would have been easier. I believed that real strength didn't need to announce itself. He didn't always notice this quiet strength, but it shaped our life more than he knew. It held us together when emotions threatened to pull us apart. Quiet strength doesn't seek validation. It simply endures. And sometimes, the strongest love is the one that speaks the least but stands the longest. Life has a way of revealing the truth behind relationships. For us, that truth emerged during a time when everything began to fall apart. My husband faced challenges that tested his strength, his confidence, and his faith in the people around him. One by one, familiar voices grew quiet. Support turned into distance. During that time, he changed. The urgency in his voice softened into exhaustion. The certainty he once carried was replaced by doubt. He felt exposed and alone, even in rooms filled with people. And still, he believed I didn't fully understand him. But I stayed. I didn't offer dramatic speeches or promises. I didn't try to fix what couldn't be fixed. Instead, I stood beside him in the ordinary moments, late nights, silent mornings, and long days when hope felt heavy. My presence wasn't loud, but it was constant. When others walked away because the burden was too much, I remained without asking for recognition. I listened when he needed to talk and stayed silent when words would only deepen his pain. I carried his worries quietly, making space for his weakness without making him feel smaller. In those moments, love was no longer about being understood. It was about being dependable. I chose him every day, even when the future was unclear. Slowly, he began to notice. Not through words, but through consistency. Through the fact that I was still there when everything else was uncertain, that the change didn't happen suddenly. There was no single conversation, no dramatic apology. It came quietly, the same way understanding often does. My husband began to notice the things he had once overlooked. The consistency of my presence, the way I stayed even when life became difficult. He started to see patterns. I was there in moments when he felt weakest, when words failed him, when frustration turned into silence. I didn't demand explanations or rush him to heal. I waited, and in that waiting, something shifted. One evening, after a long and exhausting day, he sat beside me without speaking. There was no tension, no expectation, just stillness. For the first time, he didn't fill the silence. He let it exist. And in that quiet, he understood. He realized that I had always been speaking his language, just not in the way he expected. My love was expressed through patience, steadiness, and loyalty. While he had been listening for words, I had been communicating through actions. That realization carried weight. He saw how often he had mistaken calm for distance and silence for indifference. He understood that my restraint was never absence. It was care. It was protection. It was love that chose endurance over expression. He didn't say much when the understanding settled in. He didn't need to. His behavior changed. He listened more. He paused before reacting. He began to value what didn't need to be spoken. Realization doesn't always come with regret. It comes with clarity. And clarity has a way of softening hearts. In learning to listen differently, he finally heard me. In the end, we learned that the truest language in a relationship is not spoken, it is lived. Words can explain, argue, and promise, but they cannot always hold what the heart feels. What remained between us was something quieter and far more powerful. My husband no longer measured understanding by how quickly I responded or how strongly I reacted. He learned to notice the spaces in between, the moments of calm, the steady presence, the loyalty that didn't need reminders. He began to understand that love doesn't always announce itself. I, too, learned something important. Silence can be meaningful, but love grows deeper when it is occasionally translated. I learned to meet him halfway, to offer words when reassurance was needed, and to trust that being heard didn't weaken my calm. It strengthened our bond. We didn't become perfect. We became aware. We learned that two people can speak different emotional languages and still build a shared understanding. Love was no longer about proving who was right, but about recognizing how each of us expressed care. The true language turned out to be patience. It was presence during uncertainty, listening without defense, and choosing each other even when communication felt difficult. It was learning to hear what was never said and to respect what was. Understanding didn't arrive loudly. It arrived gently, through time, effort, and willingness. And once we recognized that, everything else softened. Because when two hearts finally learn how to listen, even silence becomes a conversation, and love becomes something that needs no translation.